all the members of the club and the guests and other candidates. I'm Stephan Weiner, candidate for surrogate court judge. Let me ask you a question to start out.
I hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Do you agree with me that this election on November 5th is the most important election you've ever seen in your lifetime? I agree, it is. And it's not about me, but it's about the head of the ticket all the way down. But have you ever seen an opposition candidate who was in court so many times at the behest of the people who are running the country, dragging him into court, or in the state of New York in various courtrooms? Have you ever seen this kind of conduct addressed towards an opposition candidate before? Have you ever seen that? No. Okay, I say that to talk about how important judges are. You know, New York City has so many Democratic elected judges. It's just considered almost unthinkable the Republican runs for a position. And this position I'm running for surrogate court in Queens, we cannot think of a Republican in living memory who's ever run for it. And part of how that works is the surrogate court judge has a term of 14 years. Think about that. It's almost, it's a half a lifetime in effect for a professional career, a 14-year term. So it's a very important position. There's only one surrogate court judge for the whole county, and that court decides cases involving wills, trusts, estates, guardianships. It does some adoptions. And I want to tell you something about myself and why I think I can bring change to this court, and why this in its own little corner is one of the most important races that you're going to see. Okay, here's my background. I didn't come from privilege. I grew up in the Bronx when it was known as the Burning Bronx. There was tremendous crime in the 1960s, 1970s. As a young boy, I rode the subways alone at times, and it was a very difficult time. And the Bronx was controlled almost entirely by the Democratic Party while it was burning, while the crime was skyrocketing. And I saw that. And I did have a break. I did have a chance to get a good education. Neither of my parents had the opportunity to go to college. My father was a World War II veteran who served in the Navy and served honorably. I'm proud of him. And my mother and father were both working people. They didn't, take handouts, but they worked in a tough environment. And I went to the Bronx High School of Science. I got a partial scholarship to Yale. I went to Columbia Law School. I became a member of the Columbia Law Review, which is the highest academic journal at Columbia. And then I worked at two of the major law firms that were in Manhattan, two of the biggest law firms. One of them was called Cahill, Gordon, and Rindell. It was famous for having tough Irish litigators. And I was a trial lawyer for a long time. And about 20 years ago, I focused entirely on wills, estates, and guardianship, which is what the surrogate court does. So I've had decades of experience doing the work, and I, in fact, was appointed by one of the surrogate judges in Queens. His name was Robert Nauman. He appointed me to some cases as an attorney for people who didn't have a lawyer. So I've seen this court, and I've been in the court, and I know what it's all about. And one of the things that I saw is that it's one of the key patronage operations for the Democratic Party because the surrogate appoints lawyers to handle certain matters from the bench, and it also has a law firm. And the law firm that represents the surrogate court is the chief election lawyer law firm for the Democratic Party of Queens. And it's publicly documented the law firm makes millions and millions of dollars over time. So this has been going on for a long time. It's sort of a closed, not very well-known corner of the court system where a lot of resources have been rewarded people who help the Democratic Party. I want to change this, and I want to change it by making it a fair court where people are selected based on merit. That's the way I grew up, that you judge people by the content of the character and by how they can accomplish things. That's the way it should be. It shouldn't be political, it shouldn't be other criteria that have nothing to do with the law. And I also believe the rule of law doesn't operate one way for one party and the other way for another party. Yeah, thank you. So, how am I going to do all this? Well, I need your vote. I mean, this is a tremendous fight because the Democratic Party will fight fiercely to keep this position in their control. And we have support all over the county. I'm so grateful. There are candidates here who are helping with my literature, putting up signs around Queens. You know, to do the entire county is no easy thing. I haven't run for office before. Just so you know, when I left law school, I worked at these major firms. In the 1990s, I opened my own firm. I know what it is to have your own business. My opponent has been a lifetime civil servant, I would say. You might call it that way. She's been employed by the government, basically. And I've been out there in the trenches doing law for private clients since the 1990s with my own firm. So I know, and those of you who are in business, what the challenges are that you face. And I've been in New York City the whole time. The other part of it is there's some differences between me and my opponent. She is an attorney who became admitted to New York Bar in 2007. I started practicing in 1985. I have double the years of legal experience. She is not a wills, trust, and estate attorney, which is what this court involves. It's like going to, having a cardiac problem and saying, I'm gonna go to somebody who does another kind of specialty. Let's say it's osteo, something like, an anesthesiologist or something else. You know, you're not going to the cardiologist. That's really what we have here. It's sort of a mismatch. And what happened is the Democratic Party went into its ranks of supporters, and the other candidate happens to be a Supreme Court judge who doesn't do wills in the states and has 9 years left on a Supreme Court term, and for a reason I don't know is pursuing this position. Let me mention one other thing about why this is personal for me. I have my lovely wife of 38 years is here, and I'm so grateful she could make it after an accident. She's been recovering. We have a developmentally disabled son, and I was appointed in the 1980s as his standby, successor guardian by the Queen's Surrogate Court. One of the things this Queen's Surrogate Court does is guardianships for developmentally disabled people. Having him in my family, being with him for decades, and seeing other families and what the challenges are in educating and helping, I would be especially sensitive to the families of the developmentally disabled people who need these guardianships. The guardianship is put in place because they can't make their own health decisions. You know, they're not able to decide these things realistically, and when they get 18, the parents or the closest people have to be appointed to make the decisions for them and basically help them in every possible way. And it can also be done earlier as well. So I really want to do this for the people of Queens. I want to see the court that's good for not just the families of disabled people, but also good for people who've lost their loved ones. And it shouldn't be, I mean, who here thinks that when people die in Queens, somehow that should benefit the Democratic Party machine? Does anyone believe that? No. I mean, we've got to end it. We can end it in this election. This is our opportunity. Thank you. Stephan Weiner, the surrogate court judge, and there'll be so many names on there. And by the way, one last thing. There are other judicial candidates here. We're not running against each other. There's only one, it's a one-to-one surrogate court race. I'm on the Republican, conservative, and common sense party lines against the Democratic candidate. So it's one-to-one. The other judges here are running for different judicial positions where there are multiple candidates, and they're going to explain that. So thank you all for your attention. God bless.